I have here in the studio two interesting people. I have read something that's absolutely revolutionary. The gentleman called me, wanted on the program, and I said, why not? He is Norm Lebeau. And I also have here in the studio of the Sheriff's Narcotic Division of Los Angeles County, Sergeant Eugene Rudolph. So let's get to the subject matter at hand. Here's his letter to me. I'm writing you in regards to a religion of which I am both founder and president. The drugs, or Drugs and Revolution, will establish a utopian government for our society religion. The drugs religion was founded in 1980 in Isla Vista, California, and we have attracted over 1,000 members in the Santa Barbara and Los Angeles areas by preaching the true gospel of God. The need to partake of such psychedelic drugs as marijuana, LSD, peyote, and magic mushrooms, using them as divine sacraments in a communal religion, a religious mass ceremony in which one gains the true knowledge of God. The need for, and get this, a true Marxist revolution of society in order to establish a country and world based on the godly Marxist principles of freedom, equality, love, and unity. All right. That by way of introduction to Norm Lebeau of Monrovia, California. Norm, welcome.
Thank you, George.
All right, I find this interesting. On the one hand, you talk about a new Marxist and then godly Marxist principles of freedom, equality, love, and unity. How can you put godly and Marxist principles together in the same breath? I'm really asking for explanation.
Okay, we don't think that what Russia has is Marxism. We feel that's fascism. The true Marxism is freedom and equality and unity. And so what we look at is that the true Marxist way of life is a truly godly way of life, where things are shared and things are equal and all live as one. Instead of, as in Russia or here in America, where the rich exploit the poor. Here the rich are the people who own the technology, own the factories, and Russia the people who are rich are the people in the Communist Party. So there's no real difference.
All right, but you refer to this as the drugs religion and your own unique philosophy, which is involved with psychedelic drugs. You use this as a sacrament in the religion?
Yeah, we do. We learn the true knowledge of God through using these drugs. We don't use them for partying or for fun and games. We use them for knowledge. And we become aware that we are living an evil way of life here in America. As I said, the rich exploit the poor. We've got people living up in mansions while we have people living in the street here in L.A. with nothing to live on, no food, no clothing, no shelter, no medical care. And so that's evil. And what we want to do is we want to share everything. We want to create a way of life, a government, a whole society, where everything is shared, where everything is equal. And that's what we mean by Marxism. We don't mean these false notions of Marxism which have been expounded through the media. People think that Marxism is evil. It's not true. Marxism is really of God. You have to really get into it and understand what Marxism is about to see that. And that's why we use the drugs, because most people are controlled in their minds right now. The drugs are used to uncontrol their minds and to show them what's really going on in society.
Karl Marx was dead set against God. He was an atheist, didn't believe in God. Karl Marx had difficulty living in an organized society. Karl Marx was opposed to all of the principles of our true democracy within a republic. Karl Marx didn't require drugs in order to get that way, did he?
He did use hashish.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, in order to become more aware, because he was part of the bourgeoisie society anyway. And so by using the hashish, he became aware that there was a need for a different way of life. He was a rich guy, but he became aware that this was an evil way of life, and so he tried to create a new one. As for him not believing in God, he didn't believe in the God of his day, which was saying that the rich were justly exploiting the poor. And that's what we believe. We actually believe that organized religion does not worship God, it actually worships the devil. And so by telling people that God has created the world the way it is, that's a lie. It's God which is in favor of revolution, because God is in favor of creating a different way of life where the true principles of God are created.
May I ask you a personal question? Are you under the influence of any drugs at the moment?
I have used in a religious ceremony today the marijuana, and so I am knowledgeable.
You are. All right. If everyone in society, you say, would use these drugs as part of their religion, they would realize the value of Marxism and the need for revolution in the United States. Are you an exponent of revolution, overthrowing our present government?
We are a peaceful revolution, which is not illegal. It's in the Declaration of Independence that when the people decide that they want a new government, they have the right to create a new government. What we call for is a new constitutional convention where we can drop a new constitution which will put the Marxist principles of life into a constitution. And so everything we talk about is perfectly above board and legal. We don't believe in violence.
Let me ask this. Are you advocating the use of these drugs as a vehicle to achieve a Marxist society in the United States?
Yes, we are. That's why I'm here talking about it, because we have to show people drugs are not for partying. If you're going to use drugs for partying, don't even use them. You're supposed to use these drugs for knowledge, and only these drugs. Don't use cocaine, don't use heroin, don't use alcohol. Only the natural psychedelic drugs.
Now, you tried to impose this idea on a group at your college, did you not?
We tried.
Wasn't it California State University campus?
Yeah, we tried to get it accepted on campus as an organized religion, and they turned us down. So we're going to be suing them for $10 million because
All right.
they did turn us
Why
down.
did they turn you down?
Because they had the nerve to say that we weren't a real religion, and we can prove that the origins of religion were tied in with the drugs. Christianity, Judaism, and Islam were all tied in with the use of drugs originally. Now they've become devilish religions because they no longer use the drugs. They have taken the knowledge of the drugs and taken it out of their religion. And so, as I've said earlier, we believe that they worship Satan. They do not worship God anymore.
All right. Now, you've spoken, of course, of marijuana, LSD, peyote, magic mushrooms, etc. Why do you stop short of PCP? Why don't you include PCP?
It's not a psychedelic drug. PCP is a mind-dulling drug. We won't use those drugs. PCP is no different than alcohol.
It also creates a pretty violent state, does it not?
Yeah, and that's why we tell people not to use these other drugs.
Why do you suppose that our law enforcement agencies, our legislatures, our government, are opposed to the use of these drugs, particularly by young people?
I think the problem is that first of all, people use it for partying, so that is bad, and I agree they should be opposed to that. But another thing is, going back to the 1960s, is that they knew that these drugs were really a time bomb which could show people the need for a different way of life. If you want to go back to what happened in Berkeley in the 60s and the whole revolutionary movement, which never really panned out, but the whole start of that movement was due to the drugs. If people hadn't used marijuana in the early 1960s, they had not used the LSD, they wouldn't have been aware how evil American society was, and they wouldn't have tried to take to the streets as they did and try to change it.
All right, you have referred to ours as an evil society. Would a revolutionary organization like the one that you propose be tolerated in a Marxist-controlled government such as the Soviet Union?
That's not Marxism, that's fascism, and no, we would not be tolerated. And so what we think Marxism is the true democracy, where people have the right to live equally and not only be equal in rights, but equally in economy, too.
As I listen to you, Norm Lubow, I can only say that you seem to be repeating something covered by Timothy Leary many, many years ago. His ideas and yours, I think they're pretty well left over from the 60s. There was no validity to those claims, and is there any validity to it now?
I think there are. The problem with Tim Leary is he had stopped using the drugs and had really not gotten as revolutionary as we did. He tried to tone it down. He told people to drop out. We're telling people to drop in and try to change things.
But he appears to be bombed out of his gourd. Something has happened to people after they use them.
He never used them for knowledge after a couple of years, and so now he does things for money. We don't do things for money. We use them for principles.
I would be willing, on the basis of principle, to challenge you to a test. If you would stop using all drugs, marijuana in particular, for 3 months, I want to challenge you as to your change of position, your change of mind. Let me tell you an experience I had. Hardin Jones, 30-some years ago, was a pharmacologist at the university up there at Berkeley. And he told me the story of 300 members of his class. He said, if you kids will drop your use of marijuana for 3 months, you will note a cloud raising and rising. And you will begin to understand things differently. And they did, and they did.
Well, I think that's true because they no longer had the knowledge of God within them. If I had stopped using marijuana for 3 months, I would no longer be dedicated to trying to change things. I'd be like everybody else, and I'd be a clone which goes along with the way things are. And I'm not going to go along with them. I'm trying to change things. And so marijuana is part of that, our religion, which leads us to change. If I had stopped using the marijuana, I would no longer be a revolutionary.
All right, let me understand it then. Drugs and revolution, you say, will establish a utopian government for society, founded by you, Norm Lubow, dedicated to the memory of Karl Marx and Ernesto Che Guevara, who taught us not only how to recognize the causes and the symptoms of economic inequality, but also the need to band together to fight and correct this inequality wherever it exists. I must tell you this, the